meeting order. All right, at this time, I will call the meeting to order of the Roanoke TPO. I'd like to welcome everybody here, and with that, Wayne, do you want to call the order first, or you want me to read this statement that we're supposed to read at each meeting?
Why don't we, Mr. Chair, why don't we go ahead and just call for the attendance, and then we can read the statement.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Clinton?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here, sir.
Mr. Bestpitch?
Here.
Mr. Cobb? Mr. Fidgelowski?
Here.
Mr. North?
Here.
Mr. Radford?
Here.
Ms. Turk?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Lyles? Mr. Stovall? Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Price? Mr. Osborne?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Mr. Soninkler?
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, sir. Well, first, let me read this statement that we're required to read at each meeting, and then we'll go for the consent, for the approval of the consent agenda. But pursuant to the City of Roanoke Emergency Ordinance adopted by the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization Policy Board on April 23rd, 2020, and 2020 Virginia General Assembly Legislation H-29 enacted April 24th, 2020, the October meeting of the RVTPO will be held virtually via Zoom on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020 at 1 p.m. Under the current state of emergency and until further notice, it has been deemed unsafe to assemble a quorum of a public body in one place. Any members of the public may view and participate in the meeting through electronic means. Meeting details are listed on the second page of the agenda. All materials made available to the members will be made available to the public at the same time by posting on the RVARC website. Okay, we've had agenda item, the welcome and the roll call. Let's go to agenda item number 2, if we can, approval of the consent agenda items. Any questions on that? No questions. Do I hear a motion to approve? Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a motion.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Who made the motion in the second?
I made the motion, Wayne. Bill Bestpitch.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Bill North made the second.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Any questions on that motion? If not, all in favor?
We'll have a call roll, Mr. Chair.
I knew that. I
Okay.
did it. Oh, have mercy.
Oh, yeah, one more after this, though. All right, Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Clinton,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bestpitch,
Yes.
Mr. Cobb,
Yes.
Mr. Fidgelowski,
Yes.
Mr. North,
Yes.
Mr. Radford,
Here.
Ms. Turk,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Price isn't here, Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. Soninkler.
Yes.
Motion's approved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Chairman's remarks. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, December the 10th at 1 p.m. And our next 2021 RVTPO Policy Board meeting schedule, that's on page 22 of your agenda today. And we have the VDOT RPT commuter survey. Any questions on that, Wayne? Any discussion that you know of?
No, sir, this is the second, I think, in a series of surveys that VDOT is working with VDRPT to look at how commuter patterns have changed during the COVID pandemic. And I think that survey, and I think Mr. King or Mr. Sonic-Clark could correct me. I think the end of the surveying period is the 31st of October, and they're trying to get as many responses as possible in by that time.
Okay. Any questions or any other comments on that? A few other remarks here. There's been discussion at TPO meetings about the need for more citizen input in our transportation planning activities. The staff has developed a new survey to obtain input on the long-range transportation plan, and the survey is now available and will remain available until November the 16th. The survey can be accessed on the Regional Commission's website, and we do hope everyone will help advertise the survey to our citizens out there so we can get as many responses as we can get. Second thing I'd like to bring up is the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation have been looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic is changing the ways Virginians travel to and from work. These agencies are encouraging Virginians to take a short survey to let VDOT and VDRPT know how you are currently traveling, what has changed, and to help identify ways to improve your commute. The link to the survey is provided in your agenda. I took that survey myself, and it's a pretty simple survey. It didn't take long to do. Since I don't carpool, ride with someone else, ride a bus or whatever, it's pretty simple for me. So it didn't take long, but I'd encourage you to take that and let VDOT see how you feel. Item number 3, since the holidays fall around the time of our meetings in November and December, the TPO has traditionally held a combined meeting in early December. Now, the next meeting date of the RVTPO Policy Board will be held on Thursday, December the 10th, 2020 at 1 p.m. And item number 4, the staff understands that our TPO Policy Board members are very busy and that it would be good to provide a schedule of the board meetings in 2021 so you can get the meetings on your calendar. The schedule is on page 22 of this agenda. And thank you for that, Wayne. I'll mark down everything so I don't forget next time. Any questions from any of the comments that I've mentioned there? Okay, it's really good seeing all of you here this morning and to be in the meeting and to show your commitment. Item number 4 is approval of congestion management process. Now this is on page 23 of your congestion management process that's on your agenda here. I think Ruben, you're going to make some comments on that and explain that and go over that. Am I correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have been updating the congestion management process, and you've now heard about this several times. This was first adopted in 2014, and as recommended in the, not the last federal certification review, but the one before that, we were working on the update during the most recent federal certification review, but they did recommend that we do update that. So we have incorporated input from a workshop, from a survey, and as Mr. Martin just mentioned, your interest in public input. We had 384 responses for that survey, which is actually pretty good for our many of our surveys. We had some interviews and a lot of data analysis went into this. You saw the first draft last month, and we have been incorporating comments and suggestions into this revision, including a section describing the progress made since 2014, grouping some of the projects by category rather than listing them all individually, removed the corridors of concern from the appendix up into the document, and made some other edits. So the Transportation Technical Committee did recommend this draft for your approval.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have.
That's all. Any questions for Rachel? Any comments? Okay, hearing none, then we will go for the adoption of a resolution approving the congestion management process for the Roanoke Valley TPO, which is on page 24. Do I hear a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I
So
make,
moved. Go ahead, Phil.
I believe I heard Mr. North make the motion. Who made the second?
I'll second it. Steve Clinton.
Okay, seconded by Steve Clinton. Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions on the motion for this resolution? If not, then we'll take a vote.
I'll call the roll, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Clinton,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
yes, sir.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Yes.
Mr. Cobb,
yes.
Mr. Fidgelowski,
Yes.
Mr. North,
Yes.
Mr. Radford,
Yes.
Ms. Turk,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. Sonnenklar, Mr. Sonnenklar.
Sorry, yes.
The motion passes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The motion has passed. Okay, agenda item number 5, it's a smart scale round 4 update. And I believe Mr. Brian Hill is going to share that with us. Brian, you there, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it's all yours.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Even though we just, it seems like some of us, it seems like it forever, others, it seems like just yesterday that the applications for round 4 of the Smart Scale program were submitted back August 17th or before. So we've got a little bit of an update just based on some preliminary information that we've got, and we'll talk about what we've got and how that's going to change as the process moves forward. Let's see. All right. Here we've got some preliminary statistics here with showing the applications submitted. And I'll caveat that by saying that what you're going to see in the next couple of slides is based on information received as of September 16th. So the numbers you see here, for example, the 405 submitted applications, that number will decrease, as well as it's expected to, as well as the total project costs for all the projects and the total requested. And the reason being is that OEP, VDOT, and DRPT are still in the midst of the validation and screening process. And as projects are screened out, then that number will and really the column will change from submitted applications to screened in applications. And so those numbers would change as well. But you see that there's, as of this information we received, 405 projects and 60 coming from the Salem district, which comprises about 15% of all the projects statewide. 7.3 billion in total ask, and then with leverage and other funds committed, just shortly under $6 billion. Here is again, based on numbers that we have, just a distribution of projects by type. This is really no big surprise that 75% are highway projects. But one thing that is notable is the 20% statewide, which are bike and ped projects. And I think that's And I stand to be corrected on that, but I think that's about the highest percentage of the piece of the pie that Bike Pit has taken thus far in the 4 rounds. And I mentioned earlier that the numbers would change based on the screening process. And about a month ago, the Office of Intermodal Planning Investment and other state agencies had a meeting with MPO and PDC stakeholders across the state, and some of their observations that you'll see here based on what they found in terms of that were issues of what the most common issues for screening projects out were project readiness, a clear and concise project description, and then some of the planning requirements that have been all along and or added throughout the various rounds, interchange justification reports, second justifications, et cetera. One of the most, I guess, significant, although not life-changing in terms of applications, additions to this round was something called the state's understanding of the project scope, or the SUPS, and this was added in the 4th round. And the idea is to just to sort of align the project description, the goals and the reasons for the project, and to get a mutual agreement by VDOT, DRPT, and the project sponsor. And that is part of the validation process, and and it's, as you can see, it helps to validate the cost estimates. It helps to support projects, and if the project is funded, it provides a basis, or kind of a benchmark for any future project changes. So it's something to refer to in case there is a change when the project is funded. So here's an example of one of the 3 projects that we the TPO submitted. And what I've got, and this is the Route 460 at West Brewerton Road intersection improvements project. At the top, you see the project short description. This is something that was added and submitted with the application. In this case, it was developed in the pre-app phase and then carried over and was refined and then finally was submitted. What you see below it is, for all intents and purposes, a much more inventoried listing and accounting of the items that are mentioned in the project short description. So this is, to put it quite simply, it's the way that the state, be it folks at OAP, central office and VDOT, or other folks that are tasked with scoring the projects, it is their understanding of this short description. That during the validation process is then entered into the application, and those of us that are project sponsors and apply for these projects, we get an alert, and then we have to either say, well, we agree with this, or no, we don't. So this goes through a couple of different approvals. The folks at the VDOT Salem district first take a look at it, and then they pass that on to the project sponsor, which in this case for this project was me. So these were both subsequently reviewed and approved. Just a couple of things about the timeline. As I've mentioned before, we're in the development of the scoring, the measures, and the validation. So the validation's been going on for some time. All that should wrap up in December with an as usual or as an expected release in January of 21. of the scoring of the projects and a first preliminary recommended funding scenario. And then of course, over into 21, the various public hearings and the refinements, which ultimately leads up to the adoption of the 6-year improvement program by the CTB in June. Just a couple of final thoughts here. As most of you that were at last month's meeting recall, Mr. King mentioning that there, again, at this point, there really is no definitive funding amount for this round. That those numbers would be a bit more galvanized as the quarterly revenues come in toward the end of the calendar year. Like I said, the scenarios are anticipated again to be released in January 21. So in the next couple of months, we should know a bit more about those numbers. And secondly, as we found, as those of us that deal with smart scale on a regular basis, this is a continual process, and we've urged folks at the TTC level and all levels of local governments just to be engaged in this ongoing prioritization and determination of what your project applications would be. A lot of the locality staffs have or will plan to meet with VDOT and do that very thing, discuss a project pipeline, if you will, and to prioritize future transportation needs. And then, of course, we'll keep you all updated as more information becomes available. And that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Is there any questions or any comments or concerns on what Brian has shared with us today? From anyone? Well, if I don't hear any, then we'll go to item number 6, which is other business. Mr. Strickland, do you know of any other business that we need to discuss today? You, any of the other board members?
No, so we're just waiting to find out more about what the funding situation is going to be at the end of this year.
Okay, good. All right, then if there's no other business, item number 7 is comment period by our TPO policy board members and or public. Do we have any comments from anyone in the audience?
Yeah, Mr. Martin,
Yes, sir.
this is Bill Bestpitch.
Hey, Bill.
As some of you know, Mayor Gross from Vinton, who chairs the regional commission, had asked me to represent him and the commission on the I-81 committee that was meeting some last year and reviewing, making recommendations on the dedicated funding for the improvements to I-81. With everything that's happened this year, the meeting schedule really got thrown off. We thought there might be a meeting sometime over the last couple of months, but as long as the special session of the General Assembly was continuing, it was difficult to schedule a meeting. Saying all that to say, there finally is another meeting of the committee tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. It's a WebEx meeting, which of course operates similar to Zoom, not exactly the same, but it's also going to be live streamed on improve81.org. So if anyone is interested in following that meeting, or if you want more information, you can certainly contact me offline. But if you want to observe the meeting, it will be live streamed tomorrow morning starting at 9 o'clock on the website improve81.org. And I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. It's kind of interesting to me that they set this up with the regional commissions and not the TPO. And I guess that's because not everybody's included in the TPO that's up and down 81. So anyway, I just want to make sure people knew that they're trying to revive that process. And I don't know whether Mr. King can share any other information about that or not, but the meeting is tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a few comments, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So so we had some changes in the committee representation from our area. So Sam Rasul and John Edwards both came on to the committee to join Chris Hurst to be the representatives from our area here in the Salem district that are part of the committee. And one of the actions will be to identify a chair and a vice chair. That's probably the most notable true action that the committee will take tomorrow. And we will hear some more from our financial folks about how the revenues are looking. The most significant point there, I think I had shared last time, that there was a bill that was going to give us greater flexibility to work with cash balances on projects that aren't set to spend that money in the upcoming fiscal year, and that was supported by the special session. It is before the governor, and the governor's expected to sign that. So that will help, in particular, the smart scale and other types of projects that are a part of our overall program. But we'll, and then the Interstate 81 funding, it'll be interesting to see the information that's shared there and how that's characterized. But I will say that certainly the decrease in funding is not as significant as what was originally feared. I guess that's the best way to put it. The other thing I'd say is that I-81, that improveI81.org is a really good website. It has an interactive map that you can actually see, and it has a timeline, so you can actually kind of drag a cursor across the years, and you'll see on the map the projects appear on the map that are going to be active within that time frame. So it's some really good information there for those that might be interested in terms of the projects. Our two significant projects out of that in this area, we've got a number of projects that are XL, decel lane type improvements, but the big projects that are making 3 lanes between Troutville and Christiansburg for us is from 581 to exit 150. We have that under a design where we're in the process of awarding a design contract there. AECom, local firm, has an office here, of course. They're a big firm, national firm, but they have that, they are poised to receive that award. And then we have shortlisted 3 design build firms to handle the project from 311, or actually 419, from 419 all the way back to Wildwood Road. So that's 141 to 137. And that'll be done as a design build. And that's when we carry a project to, a 30% or so design, and then we hire a team of both contractor and designer. We're not sure about the section back toward 150. We're going to do design work there to determine whether it would be best to go through a design build type arrangement, or whether it would be better for us to go what we refer to as a design bid build. So we complete the design and then go out for bids to then build the project. So those are our 2 big projects, and everything seems to be, moving along pretty well with those. And of course, I have briefed Mr. Rasul yesterday, and actually we'll brief Senator Edwards here this afternoon, just on the projects and where we are. And we do have that one missing tooth, if you will, in the southbound direction between Wildwood Road and Toronto. And of course, now's not the time for us to push on that issue. We need to get the 2 projects we've got under contract and a few more years under our belt. But certainly that'll be one for us to make sure people continue to be aware of, because that's the one segment, if you recall, out of the $2 billion investment that was not able to be funded, was that piece between Wildwood Road and Toronto in the southbound direction. It'll just be 2 lanes until we can get the next volley of projects in the future. So that's all I've got, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. King. We appreciate that information. Anybody have any questions for Mr. King, or any comments on what he's just shared with us?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. King about the lighting on the interstate. Landon Howard asked me how long it will take to get lights, and I said, just maybe 6 months. No, I didn't say that. I said it'll take a little while. But do you have any sense of when that process will start?
Well, that the lighting would be included in the project activity of the widening. So unfortunately, the 6 months is more like 3 years and 6 months. But so
Yeah, I told him it would take a little while. We won't be putting those poles up any.
yeah, it'll be done in conjunction with the widening project itself. And I am working with Secretary's office and others in terms of a response to that. So stay tuned in regards to that.
And when can we expect the entire package that was put together from Wildwood Road, I guess, and all the way to 150? When will that be completed? Are we talking 6 years?
Well, the committee recommended bonding. The General Assembly had allowed the Commonwealth Transportation Board to exercise bonding. They have not done that as of yet. At this point, we're not really into the construction, so I don't think they were looking to exercise bond. But with the bonding, we'll bring this project forward. We should be able to complete project about a 10 to 11 year period was the horizon.
Right.
And that would take the $2 billion projects and push those through. Now from there, I think it just depends on revenues. Certainly one of the things I want to be watching is how our projects come in terms of their estimate and then their actual construction costs. Certainly when we get to the section that's the northbound between Toronto and Wildwood Road, that's when we really need to be pushing for funding, because it's not efficient to try to widen one side and then turn around years later and widen the other side. It's much more efficient for a contractor to go in and widen both directions at the same time. But that'll be a few years off before we have to we'll see what the lay of the land is and what kind of financial situation we have and really try to make a push for that. And so you figure that one is another, it's another 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how well we can bring that in. So it's going to take us about 10 years to get 3 lanes between, 10 years or a little more to get 3 lanes between the valleys, or between Blacksburg and the Roanoke Valley. So,
Mr. King, I'll be so old, I hope we have autonomous cars by then. Just hop in an autonomous car, head down the road.
I figured you were shooting for a drone, just to fly.
Here, if you
Well,
if you have autonomous cars, Mr. Chair, we'll have to stand out there and collect money with a boot like they do over in Botetourt, because the gasoline tax revenues will diminish, Wayne.
That's true.
Mr. Chair, I do have a few comments.
Yes, sir.
Move on. In the meeting package under September 24th RVTPO minutes on pages 3 to 21, specifically pages 19 through 21, it talks about the TED study update. And I'm glad to see that a plan is outlined in here. And for those that aren't familiar with TED, I would encourage you to look that over. I think at the current time, the TED study process is seeking business survey input in October and November to blend with the transportation projects in the area, so that the project, the TED study update, will be completed with more input in addition to citizen input, but business input as well. And I just want to thank staff at the commission for moving forward with this, and look forward to the results. Thank you.
Our staff does a great job, don't they? They work hard and really do a good job. Okay, is any other comments from the board member? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Bill Bestovich. Do I hear a second?
Second from Ken King.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
And you all have a great day, okay?
Y'all too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aye.
Bye.